somewhere inside you, there is a ledger. You may not call it that. You may not even think about it directly. But it is there, a running tally of everything you have done wrong, everything you have failed to do, every moment you fell short of who you were supposed to be. And every time something goes wrong in your life, that ledger gets pulled out, quietly, automatically, as if to say, see, this is why. This is the cost catching up with you. This is the balance coming due. You have been living as though that ledger is still open, as though the numbers are still being added, as though at any moment the total could come due and you would not be able to pay it. Here is what needs to be understood about that ledger. It is real in the sense that it exists. The Matrix did not invent the concept of guilt, shame, or debt out of nothing. These things correspond to something true, that actions matter, that choices have weight, that nothing you do simply disappears without consequence. But the Matrix took something true and turned it into something it was never meant to be. It took the idea of a ledger and made it permanent, unclosable, a running total that follows you everywhere, growing slightly with every mistake, never actually resolving into anything. Think about what it would actually mean for a ledger like that to be real, truly real, in the way the Matrix presents it. It would mean that every person alive is currently walking around with an active, growing balance. That somewhere, every mistake, every harsh word, every failure, every moment of selfishness is being recorded in real time, with no mechanism for it to ever be resolved. It would mean that the weight only ever increases, that there is no version of a person's life where the ledger gets lighter, only versions where it gets heavier, or where someone temporarily manages to distract themselves from looking at it. If that were true, no one could ever actually rest. Not really, not fully. Now here is the part the Matrix does not want you to look at too closely. That ledger was never meant to stay open. From the very beginning, the entire structure of it was pointing toward a single event, a moment where the balance would not just be reduced or partially forgiven or pushed to a later date. It would be closed completely. Not because the debt did not matter, but because someone else stepped in and paid it in full on your behalf. Before you ever had the chance to add it up yourself, this already happened. Not as a future promise, not as something still pending. It happened. So if the account was closed, why does it still feel open? Why do you still feel the weight of old mistakes? Why does guilt still show up uninvited, sometimes over things that happened years ago? Why does the ledger still seem to get pulled out again and again, as if nothing was ever resolved? Here's the answer. The account was closed on one side, but the Matrix kept a copy, and it has been showing you that copy, the old version, the one with the running balance, as if it were still the active record. You have been making payments on a debt that no longer exists because no one ever told you the account had already been settled. This is important, so slow down here for a moment. The feeling of guilt is not the same as the fact of guilt. You can feel like you owe something and not actually owe it. You can feel like the balance is still growing and be holding a piece of paper that says clearly paid in full. The Matrix profits from that gap, from the space between what is actually true and what you feel is true. as long as you keep feeling like the account is open, you will keep behaving like someone who is still in debt, second-guessing yourself, punishing yourself, holding back from things you actually deserve because some part of you believes you have not yet earned the right to receive them. This shows up in small, ordinary ways, more often than dramatic ones. It shows up when something good happens, and your first instinct is to brace for it to be taken away. Because surely you have not done enough to deserve it yet. It shows up when you succeed at something and immediately start looking for the catch, the cost, the price that must be coming. It shows up in the way you talk to yourself after a mistake, not as someone correcting course, but as someone confirming a verdict that was already expected. See, I knew it. I knew I would mess this up. I knew I did not really deserve this. That voice is reading from the old ledger, the one that was already closed. So what does it actually mean for an account to be closed? It does not mean the things that happened didn't happen. It does not erase history, or pretend that mistakes were not made, or suggest that none of it mattered. What it means is that the consequence of those things, the part that was supposed to separate you, weigh you down, or disqualify you, has already been absorbed, already handled, already paid. The history stays. The debt does not. Those are two different things. And the Matrix has spent a long time trying to convince you they are the same. Now think about what changes once you actually believe the account is closed. Not just intellectually, but in the way you move through your days. You stop bracing for the bill to come due. You stop assuming that good things must be temporary, or that they come with hidden costs you have not paid yet. You stop treating every mistake as proof of an old verdict and start treating it as what it actually is, a single moment in a life that is no longer being measured by a running total. This does not mean you stop caring about how you live. It means you stop living as though your worth is currently up for renegotiation. Here is something else worth sitting with. The Matrix does not just keep a ledger on you. It encourages you to keep ledgers on everyone else too, to track who has wronged you, who owes you an apology, who has not yet made up for something they did. It teaches you that relationships work the same way, as ongoing balances, where forgiveness is conditional and grudges are just unpaid debts waiting to be collected. But if your own account was closed, fully, without conditions, it becomes very strange to keep insisting that everyone else's stays open. Not because people do not cause harm, or because accountability does not matter, but because the same mercy that settled your account is available to be extended, not hoarded. This does not mean every relationship needs to be repaired, or that boundaries do not matter, or that you owe anyone access to your life simply because their account, too, could be closed. It means something quieter than that. It means you are no longer required to carry the weight of keeping score for yourself or for anyone else. The exhausting work of constantly calculating who deserves what, who has earned forgiveness, who is still in the red, that work was never actually yours to do in the first place. So here is the practical shift. The next time you catch yourself bracing for a cost, for something good to be taken away, for a mistake to be the final word, for guilt to dictate what you allow yourself to receive or pursue, pause and ask a simple question. Am I reading from the current account or the old one? Because the old one is gone. Not hidden, not pending, not waiting to resurface at the worst possible moment. Gone, closed, marked, fully and permanently paid. This is not about pretending the past did not happen, or that nothing you have done has mattered. It is about understanding that the thing you have been afraid of, the bill coming due, the balance catching up with you, the moment where everything finally gets totaled and found wanting, that moment already happened. And it ended in your favor, not because you earned it in that moment, but because it was settled on your behalf completely before you even knew there was a ledger to worry about. So put the ledger down. Not because the past does not matter, but because it no longer determines what you are allowed to have, become, or believe about yourself. The account that mattered, the one that decided whether you were enough, was closed a long time ago, and nothing that has happened since then has reopened it. You have been carrying something that was already settled. You can set it down now. Until the next one, awakened choosers.